New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. I'm Reverend Robert here in Big Sky, Montana.
And I'm Reverend Z right here in the Rocky Mountain city of Colorado.
And our very, very special guest with me here live in our remote mobile studio, thanks to the Hefferland Foundation, is Reverend Dr. Michael Gott. Reverend Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's really, it's exciting to be here.
Yes, very exciting to be here. So, folks, if you're with us for the very first time, this program happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. here on the New Thought Media Network. And normally we're all in our separate studios. However, this past summer, a number of different things came together. And I want to say a very special shout out to the Hefferland Foundation, for they invested in this ministry and provided us with a wealth of equipment to be able to go on location, to go out into the field and talk to the luminaries of our movement, to create alliances and partnerships with different organizations to help expand the reach of New Thought and this mighty New Thought message. So if this is your first time with us, it's a very, very special broadcast, and we're gonna go with all the fun we can. Now, this is tripwires. In the world of ministry, we talk about, you don't work with pets or children, and sometimes the live broadcasts go a little sideways. So if they do, bear with us. You may also hear some crazy sounds in the background. There's a helicopter building a ski lift just outside of our condo there, and he'll be flying back and forth a few times throughout our broadcast.
Constantly.
But you'll eventually be able to blend that out a little. So, hey, Z, you got some mountains behind you there, but they don't look like the ones behind us.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to represent Colorado. It's not quite fall, but it's coming. So I'm just trying to put that idea in everyone's mind that it's time to do some ingathering, or at least get prepared for some ingathering before the season changed, and we have to come in to a second gear here of how we're going to navigate when it gets dark at 4:00 or 4:30.
Right.
But I'm so glad that you guys are able to jump in from Big Sky, Montana. And I'm so excited to see my old friend and actual classmate, Reverend Dr. Michael Gott. We started ministerial school together, and he finished 1 year ahead of me because I wound up getting a job in Houston, and he graduated and he moved to the Unity of Houston church there, and it all worked out. So we were there and he took over. I'd gone to that center. There's a very nice campus there. And I hate I'm not there anymore. I'm now back full time in Colorado, but lovely campus, lovely community. And just want to say, glad you're here, Mike.
Thanks, Ozzy. It's really good to be with both you guys. And I love the work you're doing here on this network. And I'm glad to get the invitation today and have to step in and be on the show. Good to connect with you.
Nice. And so, as you know, this program is called New Thought Today. And when we came up with the idea, it was the idea of looking at New Thought across the spectrum, CSL, Unity, Divine Science, and begin to try to create a coalition and to share ideas of what each person is doing now and where they think the movement is going as a joint entity. So I'll pose that question to you in terms of give us a little bit about what you're doing in Unity of Houston and how you see these New Thought organizations, building some great bridges and doing some great work in the community.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of am a bridge because I was trained in CSL. I was a part of Centers for Spiritual Living for 20 years. That's where I did all my early education in New Thought. I became a practitioner. I became licensed and ordained as a minister there. And then I got the call to come serve at a Unity church. And when it became clear that that was going to be a long-term gig, that I needed to get ordained in Unity too. So I've got double ordination, both in Unity and CSL, and having spent time in both organizations, I feel like I have some insights and also a lot more questions than insights. It's not just the New Thought spiritual worldwide organization. It's spiritual community, it's church, it's all kinds of spiritual communities. It's just different now. People, particularly the younger generations, they're not looking for the traditional brick and mortar place where they go every Sunday out of duty and obligation. And so we have a lot of questions and some kind of, we're seeing some little areas of momentum and growth around, I would say for me, what I'm seeing locally in our community, we've been around 102 years. Our church has. We celebrated our centennial 2 years ago. Started with, this is kind of interesting too, because it started with a woman named Bertha Miller who moved to Houston in 1919. She had been studying Unity principles, Unity classes, correspondence when she lived in Kansas, moved to Houston and just invited her neighbors to come study this stuff. And it was some correspondence material created by the Fillmores. And we count that as the beginning of our community there in her living room. And now 100 years later, where we see the real momentum and energy in our community is in small groups, gathering in people's homes, right now mostly online. And that's where we're really focusing right now, is giving people an opportunity to study the teachings truly, but to do it in the relationship, in context of relationship and building friends and community in small groups. So that's kind of what we've got going on right now.
Wow. Yeah. We talk a lot about small groups around here, right, folks? Self-managed groups and small groups. So let's follow that train for a little bit. Share with us, what's that journey, what's that experience been like, especially because traditionally small groups met at church,
right,
after Sunday afternoon or after a class or before a class on Wednesdays or something like that. How's that shifted for you in your community?
Well, I'm going to back up before we get to the small groups. When I first came to Unity of Houston, as a guest singer, that's where I first came in 2010. It's a beautiful big campus, as LZS said, and I think attendance at that time was about 1,000 people on a Sunday. So it's a large church for New Thought. Yeah. And I just got the impression, having no idea that I was going to be offered a job and would eventually become the leader of the organization, I got this impression this is kind of a spectator church. It's just got this big, beautiful space, and people kind of show up on Sunday, but they're not really building relationships. And then a little over a year later, I came and I was on staff. And as I began to learn the community, that was sort of what I felt. There was real, true community being built, that for a small group of people who were the dedicated volunteers and teachers and students. But the vast majority of the people who came to church on Sunday were kind of strangers to each other. Right. And so I began to speak with my predecessor, Reverend Howard Caesar, about what can we do to build an on-ramp, an escalator into community. And we began to get creative about that. And so we already had classes. We want to strengthen our classes. We already had volunteering. We want to strengthen that. And then in about, I became senior minister in 2017. And so at that time, we actually started working with Mindy Odlin, who created the Spirit Groups program. And we launched with her program. And since then, that has been the focus of our small group ministry. And we have consistently had about 30 groups. Those groups range from 5 to 15 people, and it's been very successful for us. And so she's kind of shifting that organization. And so we're kind of in this place. We know we're going to continue creating curriculum and continue fostering our own small group ministry. It's a little unclear on if we're going to be part of something beyond that, but what we're doing.
Right on. Good. How has online played a part of that?
Well, March 15th, we shut down in 2020, and like most of the world did. And the way Spirit Groups is set up, the reason I like Mindy's approach is that you're not joining a small group forever. There are distinct periods, it's really like 8 to 10 weeks. And so it's set in 4 launches throughout the year. And so one of the biggest launches is in the spring, right after Easter. So when COVID hit, we were gearing up and really, marketing our spring launch of our spirit groups. And we had about 30 groups, and most of them, like most churches, we have a lot of older people. A lot of our hosts, the facilitators of those groups, are older. And suddenly we're asking them to do it on Zoom. And so we have people in their 70s and 80s who barely know how to turn on a computer now being asked to facilitate a group of 5 to 15 people on Zoom. There were a few hiccups.
Okay.
But it worked. So we immediately went online. We had over 300 people in small groups, all online overnight, and it's worked great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
If we bring Z back here, I know, Z, you and I can talk about the hiccups that happened in the early stages of this
yes.
of the pandemic and moving online as well. And I don't want to leave you alone there in Colorado, so I figured I better circle back to bring you back in here a little bit today.
No, well, the good thing is, I think Michael gave your question to Michael's answer gave a great segue, I think, and something that you and I talk about a lot, Reverend BRZ, and that is, what is the future of churches, spiritual centers, places where people gather for spiritual communion and work, let's say. And this whole idea of smaller entities, whatever that means, is going to be key, I think, because one thing we talked about is that a lot of the bigger centers have resources, campus and buildings and stuff, and some of the smaller places are not as equipped with that. And so we talked about this idea, and I'm going to say satellite, but that's not the right word, but a satellite community where if there's the opportunity to have a bigger center that has facilities and buildings and things like that, and then you have a smaller community that's working in the inner city, well, that city, that satellite, if you will, may become specialized in working in the inner city, maybe on a housing deal or educational deal or food deal or abuse, and in addition to doing spiritual work, that would be their service to the community, because that's where I think it's going to have to go, in that all churches, I believe. Yeah, go ahead. I think all churches are going to have to do that.
Yeah.
I guess we're experiencing a little lag, so it seems to us like Elzia is dropping out on us, and we've got the essence of your question there, dear brother. So, please.
Well, I love that idea, and we're seeing some indications of that. We're in the 4th biggest city in America, in Houston. It is the most diverse city in the country in terms of country of origin, religions practiced, languages spoken, ethnicity, and it's a big city with big city problems. And we're sort of in a more suburban, affluent area of the city, but there is a lot of interest right now in how can we serve, and how can we serve other existing groups? How can we partner? How can we make our resources available? So right now we're doing it mostly through partnership. We had an initiative we started about 3 years ago called Grow Unity, and it was not just the idea of growing our church, but growing the concept of unity. And so we partnered with about 50 organizations, just doing some interviews, some questions. We sat down, people from our community just met with all sorts of organizations around the city and just asked some simple questions and tried to find places we could collaborate. And there's been some really good things come from that. Some of them focused on hunger, some focused on health for underserved neighborhoods. And we have a couple of really good partnerships that we're working with. There's a public school right next to our church, this little pocket of mostly immigrants, undocumented folks. And there's a public school there, K through 8, that we had an inroads in. One of our members was a former administration. He was a assistant superintendent for the HISD. And then his mentee is the principal at this new school, serving mostly, kids from Guatemala, Honduras, and in that area. And so we had a relationship, and all of a sudden we found that we could use the resources that we have to support people that we would have had no way to know how to support them in terms of food, back to school fairs, mentoring the kids as they're learning English. I mean, it's just been profound. So we are seeing some of that. I want to see a lot more of that. I want to see people in my community just kind of rise up and start their own nonprofit and go do work. And we're just going to be like, yes, and just continuing to supply and support them. So I think you're on to something really
well,
big.
And I think by doing that, that's going to give a whole new meaning to interfaith, right? This whole thing about what your faith is given the situation we are with the climate and economics and medical healthcare issues, those other superficial things, I believe, and not that spirituality and religion is superficial, but I think they take a back seat to humanity. And if we're here in our commission to serve the community in a spiritual way, those kinds of things are going to have to take front seat right away.
You're right. I don't know if you guys have had any spiral dynamics conversation here at all, but you know what the spiral theory shows us is that it's going to be, we have to get back to actual survival needs is what's going to pop us into second tier. And that's what we're seeing. The climate is, it's like the earth is trying to shake off the fleas of humanity right now. And we've got we've got major issues happening. The economic divide between the rich and the poor, the political divide, it's just weird. We're getting down to some really brass tacks. And it doesn't matter if you're Methodist, Baptist, or Jewish. That stuff has no relevance here. We're human. How are we going to be able to help humanity survive and transform into something more sustainable?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest question, right, folks? That's what we really strive to address here each week is how do we as individuals and leaders and organizations of people, how do we support humanity's evolution?
That's it.
Because Z, I think I picked this one up from you originally, right? Life is prime and everything else falls secondary to that.
That's good.
We have to be willing to say, I don't know exactly what has to be done or who's going to do it, but when it's obvious this is what has to be done, I will get my hands dirty and go do it.
Yeah.
And as you've been sharing here, a vision that's kind of popping into my head, for the longest time, our centers have been places where people come to get healed. Our centers have been places where people come to maybe learn about this. But we got a lot of people that have been healed and understand what this is all about now. What if our centers become a little more of an attraction factor for the people that are ready to give, for the people that are ready to that are hungry to find a way to make a difference, that are just searching for ways to serve and don't want to just throw money at it?
Yeah, right.
I think there's real opportunity in building community to say we're a community that serves.
I couldn't agree more. And my teacher, Petra Weldis, many of you know her, she's been around the movement for a long time. She would say, it doesn't mean that our personal growth and healing is ever going to stop, that because we always have layers of new opportunities for growth. Thank you, God. But she used to say, at some point we become healed enough. We're healed enough where we can begin to give back. We can begin to find a place where we can help. And yeah, I think people are, and I heard Dr. Kathy Hearn say this, that people are coming into our center now in foundations class where they used to interact in practitioner training.
Right.
That people are coming into this teaching and into our communities with a much more evolved understanding of spirituality and interconnectivity than we had or the previous generations had. And that's it. And it's just the law of circulation. If we're only receiving, we're not giving, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And I think an interesting part of that is, as you indicated earlier, the younger generation, X, Z, millennial, pick one of them letters that they done gave them, they are more apt to want to get involved. Like I just saw an article the other day where it talked about, the resignation generation or something to that effect, where a lot of the young people are not going in for I'm going to be at the job and retire and all that. They're just saying, I'm checking out altogether. I don't like the life balance. I don't like the social justice issues or the diversity issues that are being played out. And so when we begin to kind of look at that in that light and utilize that, your idea of, hey, let's get some of these sharp whippersnappers because they are smart, get them to start some nonprofits or some kind of corporation or something that's going to be inclusive from the ground up. And we don't have to go in and do all this retrofitting and all that. And so we build in the health consciousness and the spiritual consciousness and the giving consciousness in the essence of the program itself. Then I think we're going to be able to multiply that.
I agree. And it is a puzzle, though, how to attract young adults and how to empower, support, equip them to we have some at that age, but we have not had much success with sort of helping them to organize and do anything. And maybe I'm like the elder Gen Xer. I was born in '66, so I'm just past the boomer generation. And my generation, and like the boomers, we're much more achievement, hard work, get it done. We're very entrepreneurial, and this generation is not. And I don't want to judge. I don't want to, but follow through is something that we just haven't really been able to cultivate or evoke. And so we're just kind of continuing to try to create a space for inspiration right now,
Well, and the thing, I'm sorry, Robert, I just want to throw the thing that just popped in my mind, like when you said that, is I would like to see if we can start exploring with the ideas of think tanks with these young people, to get them together, because they're used to co-collaborating. That's what they've been doing on the social media and all that all the time. And so Absolutely. If we can create a think tank with them and then get them excited about sharing ideas and co-creating, like they play Fortnite or whatever it is, just as an example. Everybody doesn't play that. But then I think we might be able to find some synergy that can get them excited and keep them involved.
It's a good idea. Yeah, I have a few 20-somethings, and one in particular is just accepted into ministerial school in mid-20s and passionate about helping people, passionate about ending animal abuse, passionate, just a lot of those kind of topics. And my job right now is just to ask, what do you see? What do you feel? What do you think? And then try and find other people who, like you said, just get together. I like the think tank model. That's a good idea, Elzia.
Yeah. And Reverend Michael just hit on a really big key, and it's a theme that we've heard here at this retreat this week over time, that I've been hearing as a drum beat throughout New Thought for a long time, and that is to listen and ask good questions. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's paramount to our philosophy. And for many, let's come back to Dr. Petra's thought, for many, we've learned how to listen for a long time, and we really have to start asking better questions and moving into a place where we give a more expansive opportunity for the answer to reveal themselves. I'm with you. Born in '66 too.
Yeah.
A very entrepreneurial spirit, very much of, well, let's just do this.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, well, the heck with it, we'll do something else. But the younger generations, they do want more of that structure, and they want to know. And back to Elzia's point, they want to know the companies and the organizations they're aligned with are making an impact in the world.
That's right.
I think that's the big key.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I think it's probably time for us to do a quick commercial break here. Let everybody grab a drink of water. And if any of us can make it to the bathroom and back in the next 30 seconds, now would be the time. As we do that, we're going to say a big, huge thank you to our producer, Diego, who makes a lot of this happen. He works behind the scenes so very diligently. So thank you, Diego. We love you. We're going to take a quick minute. We'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned. More from New Thought Today.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. I'm Reverend Robert on behalf of myself, my co-host, Reverend Elzia Sekou, is out of Denver in his Denver studio today. And we have a very, very special guest with us. The Reverend Dr. Michael Gott is with us. We are here live at the Big Sky Retreat. And we do want to say a quick shout out to the Heffernan Foundation for their deep sponsorship of this programming and helping to make all this happen today. So, Reverend Michael, we've been talking so far in the first segment and kind of a broad ranging conversation, but I would love to hear, what's your vision for the next 10, 20 years of spiritual community, of the New Thought philosophy, of what it can accomplish? What's been revealing itself through you?
Yeah, I think I'm just sort of sensing the larger vibrations. I don't know that I don't have any sort of sense of a goal. For me, it's always been about the teaching and the community. I've needed both, and I have a 12-step background, so it was always about the program of AA and then the fellowship. I needed both. I needed relationships in order to give me context to implement the principles. And so I feel like those two things are not going away, that we still need to have the timeless teaching of New Thought, which is really the perennial philosophy found in all, world faith traditions. And then we also need to find ways that people can learn and practice the teaching together. So I feel like that's something that we've had that needs to be continued. And yet I think the form has really got to change. I think, doing that, we were seeing it, church attendance across the board is dropping precipitously. So the idea of just opening the doors. I mean, I had a Unity Mr. friend who said that in the 80s, he could just rent a storefront, open the door, have a service and teach a class, and they had 100 people show up automatically. And that's just the way it was. And people were still in that mode of church. And it was just an easy thing to do. Well, we've had, how many of our friends have tried to start communities, and it's been such a struggle to get people in the door. So I think that we're just in a different time culturally, and we have to change the forms that we use. The way to convey the teaching has got to be different. So I think online has got to be a big part of it. Finding small affinity groups has got to be a big part of it. I don't really have much of a vision beyond that in terms of what it looks like. I do know that I would like to see more collaboration between the organizations.
Yes.
That's it just makes sense to me. And having been a part of CSL, like I said, for decades, and now being a part of Unity for over a decade, I just feel like it's the same philosophy. There are a lot of cultural differences.
Oh, absolutely.
And CSL with the integration process sure found 55 years of separation between RSI and United created a lot of cultural differences, but the teaching is the same. And I would like to see us at some point join forces as a united New Thought to share information, to share wisdom about what we're seeing, and we've got to innovate.
Yeah,
that's I think the main thing that we're going to probably have to see. This sounds awful. A friend of mine from CSL, who shall remain nameless, said that the split between United and RSI would be healed funeral by funeral. And and I feel like that those pockets of resistance to change in all the organizations, if people are not willing to let their sacred cows die, we're not going to be able to innovate, reformat, retool enough to stay viable. And so we may have to see more deaths. I don't mean people, but I mean ideas.
Yeah.
I mean thought forms. We have to see attachment to old forms. We just got to see things fall away so that something new can emerge. I took a lot of time off this summer. I went through a breakup and just kind of some burnt out feelings of trying to, and didn't take my time off during 2020, as a lot of people didn't. And I went to my board and said, I need some time off. And just the time off I had in my letter of call already. And I spent a lot of time alone this summer and healing and doing some deep thinking and feeling about it. And I came back, and my senior associate minister asked me, he's like, well, did you get any big insights for the future of Unity of Houston? I'm like, no. But I did have a sense that it's more, we're still in a stage of, to use the Christ path imagery, we're in the crucifixion path, that we're going to have to see more old things fall away before, and we're going to need some time in the ground, in the tomb, before we can see those new things. And I had a really strong intuitive sense that in the next 3 years, we're going to have more information that we need in order to retool for the future. I think we're trying to build something and we don't have enough information yet.
Okay. We're close, but is what I hear though too.
I think it's emerging. Yeah.
Well, and you know, I think interesting thing there that you brought up when you brought the Christ thing up is this whole idea of when you were talking about, you know, more collaboration. I look at it like the fishes and loaves of bread. Like, we have a lot of resources spread throughout these organizations. We have to figure out a way to take that small, if you will, asset of resources, come together, stop duplicating efforts. I mean, if I have a printing press and you have a printing press and Robert has a printing press, we don't need 3 printing presses. Let's get one printing press that works for everybody. Everybody figure out what their cut is or whatever that stuff is. And now let's put out quality stuff at a good price that people are going to have access to, as an example. So when we can put aside some of these sacred cows, as you say, and come up with a shared resource model, which, you know, we've talked about it on this show, community living from an individual level. We might have to do some co-oping and community living as spiritual communities, galactic, if you will, and move forward.
Yes,
I think you're right.
I do too. We can look at the Denver market as an example, and I know this is happening in pockets of pretty much every major city and most minor cities. So many communities have let go of their buildings.
Yeah,
we've been forced to. So many communities are still in the depth of that question of, okay, what is the next thing? Because I wouldn't want to go invest in a building right now. I wouldn't want to invest in a major building campaign right now, because we still don't know what the new landscape's really going to look like. So
absolutely,
we come back to our spiral dynamic analogies, right? We've got an idea, but that's just of what the landscape is. Our journey through that landscape is going to change, and it's going to be different, and
we're going to have to change. And Reverend David Alt is here at the Big Sky Retreat. He's our keynote this year, and he and I've had some conversations, and he's been sharing it in his teaching as well. It's identity has to be crushed. You know, whatever the former identity that we've held on to, this is who we are, this is what we do. Well, that was only true for then, and we have to be willing to let that former identity go in order to let something new be created. It's like that great Emerson quote, I must release my angels that my archangels may come in. But we're holding on to the angels and the sacred cows. You know, we're holding on to those forms because we think that's what we are. And that's what we were. Yeah.
And, you know, the whole idea, since we're on metaphors, I just love it. You know, the map is not the territory. If you had a map with Yugoslavia on it, you go looking for that now, you won't find it, right? So I you have the map to kind of give you some perspective a little bit, but it's only once I'm on the ground and making a real visual survey that I can understand what needs to be done and what direction I need to go. And I think a lot of we have these maps of how spirituality should look and how community should be built. And they're great examples of guideposts, but I need to be on the ground and figure out how I navigate the terrain.
Mm-hmm. I'm struck and maybe one or both of you were at this presentation, and it was at a CSL minister's presentation, I believe. And again, we'll keep the names sacred so that we can't identify
Good
when
idea.
or who. But the presentation was about the flow of like the perfect service, and just this much music to bring everybody to this point, and then we do this so that we keep them here, and then if they're going to drop off, so we anticipate that, and then we bring them back with this and this. And I watched that and I cringed inside. I died a little inside. I was just like, oh no, please don't tell me we're going there. Yeah. And we didn't. The entrepreneurial nature of New Thought interceded and said, okay, that's yes, and that's going to work for some people. But I think every community has to find what works for the people to give that ebb and flow, so we don't fall into these template traps.
Yeah, and it's like form fetish, right? It's like, and if it does work for that community, for that spiritual leader, great. But and maybe in the past that we were more, I don't know, homogeneous in our cultures, and that it would have worked in other places around the country, around the world. But I don't think it's that way anymore. I think that it's becoming much more individualized. And I think every community is going to be formed around specific needs of the place where they are. And sometimes place is now, it's not a physical space. It's a space online and I've one of the good or bad things about my time off this summer is that I've been on social media a lot more. And I'm not trying to build a Twitter following, but I will tell you, I've spent a lot of time, and that is like mean high school. Twitter is so interesting, but there are all these neighborhoods. Have you noticed? And I just find myself in a couple of interesting neighborhoods. There's spaces where there is enough of a common interest or a common inspiration that people can build spiritual community in those spaces too. I'm convinced of it. That's not going to be for me to do. Right. That's the next generation. But I see it emerging.
But that's for us to do, right,
Yeah.
folks? Because what we're talking about is part of the vision behind this network, to provide that safe space for us to have conversations, to gain new information, to gain new friendships, and continuously look at, we keep coming back, right? How do I grow? But because my growth leads me to serving a greater growth.
Right.
We can't stop with just me. It's got to keep going on. And I'm really struck that we have made progress, right? Folks, I want everybody to hear this. There's still a long way to go. There's still a lot we can do to bring this philosophy into the light, into people's awareness, into people's homes, into their workplaces, and all that they're doing. I remember when The Secret came out, and when we still jokingly referred to ourselves as the best kept secret in the world.
Right.
But I was also struck by, it's about 3-4 years ago now, but Tia Leone in her television program, Madam Secretary.
Yeah.
She does this piece in a political piece and very clearly comes out and says, and if we can do that, then we can work together and do the hard work of creating a world that works better for everybody. And I sat there watching TV just floored, because that means there's somebody in a writer's room in Hollywood that's interjecting this philosophy, these beliefs, this vision into the world. And I think that's a big part of what we're talking about here, right? How do we support the everyday individual that's out there, maybe attending our church on Sunday, maybe just tuning in on Tuesdays at lunch, maybe tuning in Thursdays after the kids go to bed? What do you think maybe is like the biggest call we can send out to the people that are getting involved with this through all these new mediums?
Well, so clarify. Do you mean what is the call to spread our philosophy? Yeah. Okay. Well, I think before that, I think we have to let go of the idea that we have all the best ideas. I think that there is that old thing that we used to, that when we first came into the movement, we're the best kept secret in the world. There's an ontological arrogance in that.
Yes.
That we have the right answer. And so many people, I was just talking about that with a friend this morning, that we've rejected the religion of our youth, usually, most of, not all, but some people have grown up in this teaching, but now I found the right thing. Now I found the most accurate. And we've got to let that go, that we have a way that will work for a lot of people. And I do believe it does. There's a lot more evolution that is into it, but we really have to let go of the idea that we have the answer. And what we need to be doing is supporting the healing of humanity, no matter where it comes from. And what I've seen is that progressive Christianity has far outpaced New Thought in terms of boots on the ground and educating and supporting. And, it's like we have things to learn. We've always felt ourselves to be so far superior to mainstream Christianity. And I'm like, we've got a lot to learn here. So, and I've actually been reading some of the people on the edge of Christian thought lately, like, Father Richard Rohr and Cynthia Bourgeois. These people are deeply non-dual in their understanding of faith. And we as New Thought, we need to kind of get over that arrogance that we have the right answer. We have the only answer, but that was not the question you asked.
Quite all right.
I do believe that our teaching is valuable and it's the perfect place for me. It's not perfect. I just want to say that the New Thought is not perfect in organization or in philosophy, but it is the most perfect and the best fit for my soul. I needed this is my community. This is my lineage. And I know that it is more accessible to the newer generations. It's a better fit than a lot of older things that are out there to get other ideas. So what I think we have to do is we have to lead with our inclusivity. We have to lead with our sense of creativity and possibility. It's our DNA. We have instead of trying to present ourselves as the answer, we just have to present our teaching in a way that is accessible, inclusive, welcoming, and gives people a sense of inspiration, hope, and creative possibility. And I don't know how, but that's what I think the what is. Yeah.
But that's the what.
Yeah.
And I've been taught, we focus on the what and let God take care of the how.
Yeah.
If we focus on the what, we trust and know that the how, the people, the resources, this is one of my personal mantras. Everything necessary for the complete and total fulfillment of my mission on this planet comes into my life exactly as necessary.
That's it.
Now, the tricky part there, folks, is that means if it's not in my life, then it's not really necessary.
To trust that.
I still think I deserve a camper van, but anyway. So before we go here, folks, Zeke, come on back in.
Just one anecdote there is, and I think that was brilliant, Reverend Michael, because I think what this time we're going through now, this last 18 months has shown us, if we've been paying any attention, is that everything is connected. There is no, I don't want to sacrifice my lungs for my heart or my heart for my kidneys, right? I need all of that. And at different points in time throughout the cycle of life, different things are going to be called into play. And so when we can begin to follow nature, God's perfect pattern, if you will, and begin to conduct our lives in that manner and say, science of mind is great for some, unity is great for some, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and I think having had some experience in like 4 different spiritual systems and looking at all of them, where I am right now, I think I could have got to the same place using any of those systems.
Wow. Yeah.
Because of the antagonistic ideas between them, where when one stops and it runs out of answers, the other one follows. So you just flip right over. And I think that's what we have to begin to do on all these systems is how do we look at it as one center of faith, one center of action, one center of service to humanity. And I think we're going to be great if we can figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. Amen.
Amen. Exactly. So, all right, folks, we've covered a lot of territory here today. And before we go, I do want to bring us to share with you a bit more of the amazing ways that we get to connect and we get to be here together this week. If you're not familiar with Big Sky Retreat, you're going to be, and you're going to continue to be, because I think that for me, and I attended many, many years ago and returning now. You've been here for many years now consistently. We've been talking about community a lot today. This represents that in a way that is unique from my perspective within the New Thought movement. So if you would speak a little bit, share with everybody, help people understand, why is this retreat just so incredibly special?
Well, it began 46 years ago, and it was it was begun with people from all of the various New Thought organizations. There was Divine Science, United, RSI, Unity. Together, they just wanted to start a place of practice. It was the Grand Tetons meditation retreat was the beginning, but for 46 years, it's been sort of a pan New Thought, and it's a safe space for spiritual exploration. We've had people come in and do work that is very esoteric and a little beyond New Thought, and then we've had our New Thought leaders and teachers. It's just a wonderful place. And it's particularly if you live in the South and in Houston, to come to the mountains of Big Sky, Montana at the end of summer, it is gorgeous. So the natural setting here, we moved to this place. We're at the Big Sky ski resort that we've been here, I think, for about 26 years. And I've been coming for half that time. This is my 13th year. It's really an amazing and unique thing that consistently we get about 150 people. I think we have about 130 this year, which during a COVID time is that we're very pleased with that turnout. And it's a great chance. This is where I met Howard Caesar. This is how I got my gig.
Right
I've met Mary Morrissey here. It's been a wonderful chance for me to extend my sense of connection and relationship beyond just Unity or just beyond CSL. And it's also been a place for me personally, even though I've been the music director and I serve on the board and I've spoken here, I'm learning, I'm growing. It's always a place for me to find my growing edge and see where it is that I'm being called higher. Yeah. So is that a good enough commercial?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, it is one of those things. A couple of the other board members were here on Sunday on another program, and they said they walk out of the hotel and turned one direction, and there's a black bear walking down the road towards the front entrance of the hotel. So we are in Montana. We are at well over the normal elevation that I'm at in Colorado. What did we
I think we're close to 8,000, a little under that, 7,700 feet, I think, is the elevation.
It feels good, and we're going to invite you to come join us next year. So this has been happening every year over the Labor Day weekend for, as we were saying, 45, 46 years now. It's not slowing down. The quality of the people that are here. You mentioned some of the people you've met. They've changed the configuration in the ballroom a little bit, and where the stage now sits, I actually sat at a table and had breakfast with Walter Starkey at one time. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it wasn't like, oh, we have breakfast? I was sitting down at breakfast, and a guy walks up and says, "Is this seat taken?" And the table says no, and we look, and it's Walter Starkey. And an amazing conversation ensues. And that same thing's been going on with David All. And I've watched him engage with people. And this has never been a retreat where it's, the people and the presenters. Like the board, everybody, it's an intimate escape. Okay. Retreat. And
it's intentional, Robert. I'm glad you picked up on that, because I hadn't thought to say that. But there have been times we've asked authors and speakers. I've been on the board now for about 8 years. We've invited them to come, but they just want to come in and present and leave. And we say, no, thank you. That we want people who will come and participate in the retreat with us for the entire week. And Dr. Jean Houston was here 4 years ago, and she did that. We had meals with, whoever wanted to sit down with Jean, there she was. We've had just amazing people. And that is part of the design, is that we're all in this laboratory, in this sandbox, wherever metaphor we want to use, of spiritual exploration. We're doing it together. It's great.
It real quickly becomes not, what do I want to do? It real quickly becomes, I'm just doing it all.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do all of it, because collectively it may not make sense on Sunday or Monday. By the end of the week, it all has come together. It's all come into alignment. So.
And every time I get important pieces of my own current spiritual growth, the pieces I'm currently working on, something drops in from one of the speakers, and there it is. That's exactly what I was looking for. So I can't recommend it enough. We've had a kind of a turnaround in our leadership. We had a very consistent board of directors, people that have been serving 20, 30 years on the board, and many of them have stepped away. And Charles Geddes is still there. He's been there from the very beginning now. Over 46 years, he's been on our board. He's our patriarch. But we have some new fresh energy, and we've just rebranded or redesigned the logo, things like that. There's a lot of, we're in a rebirth stage, and really looking forward to next year.
Yes. Yes. So again, folks, we're going to wrap this up here for today, but you're going to be hearing plenty more about us and Big Sky and how you can come be a part of this with New Thought Media Network and this amazing community next year. It's the 3rd through the 8th, I think, next year, if I remember correctly. Yeah. It's basically, sometime before the Labor Day weekend until Thursday or Friday after.
It usually starts Saturday of Labor Day weekend and extends to Thursday after. That's what we've been doing it.
You'll want to add a day on to go to Yellowstone to see the country. So anyway, we're going to get out of here and wrap this up for today. I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you both. This was great. Thank you.
Really special, again, to the Heffernan Institute for providing us with all the ability to go out on the road and do this from afar and in the field. Z, before we wrap up here, we want to bring you back in and give you a chance to give us our final thoughts today.
Well, I think you guys have said it all, which implied it. However it works out to be is relationships are also prime. And while we're there with all these luminaries and spiritual-minded people looking for answers to increase our activity in support of the humanity, make them. That's the key. Make the relationships and get busy.
Yep.
That's right.
Cool. All right, folks. Again, I'm Reverend Robert. This is New Thought Today. It happens Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Please share this with your friends, share it with your network. And if you have it in your ability at the moment, we would love if you would share of your financial good, your financial prosperity with us as well. ntmedia.org, just click on the donate button. One-time gift of any size, or if you'd like to become part of our committed giving club, please check that out as well. Again, any size, just make a monthly commitment and we'll get you rolled into that team. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you again. Let's go take a walk and find somewhere along the river to meditate. What do you
Love
think?
it. Love it.
Peace.
Peace.